Right. This will be live on LinkedIn, but there's about a 40-second delay. So just double check that we are indeed live. And thank you for your patience. Okay, that's us. Let's go. So, thank you very much for joining us today. Haley, hello. Stephen, hello. Thank you for joining me on screen. We're going to get kicked off with what's very exciting moment for poetry. We are, for the first time, live demoing what we're calling new poetry. New poetry being a totally reworked, reimagined version of our hiring enablement workspace. We have intensively studied how companies have been using poetry over the last 18 months, what they've been using a lot, and we've really optimized that, what they've not been using at all. And we have either got rid of things or we have baked them into the system so that nobody has to go and kind of make use of them by pressing buttons. They're just pure automation. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of hiring enablement, recruiter enablement. And we are going to start with Emmy, who's literally just joined us in the studio. But I know, Emmy, that you don't need a warm up, right? You're always ready for action. So
I'll be fine. Yeah. Sorry about that. So yes, okay. So introduce myself. So
yes, give us a quick introduction to you.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Emmy Beredigo. I work for a tech company called Elastic, and I head up the recruiting enablement team. And I suppose your question is, what exactly is recruiting enablement, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Which is the question that I asked myself when I actually applied for the role. I was like, I don't actually know what this is. But what it is, okay, how can I describe it? Most people have obviously heard of sales enablement. If you haven't, sales enablement is where companies give their sales reps the tools, data, content they need to close deals. So I say that recruiter enablement is quite similar. It's just a flipped concept for the talent acquisition world. So it's almost like my team and anyone else who wants to move into recruit enablement, they're the ones responsible for building the infrastructure for the hiring teams. They are responsible for removing friction from the hiring cycle. By that, I mean, right from, when a hiring manager says, look, I need to hire, to the day the candidate signs the offer. And it can vary in terms of specialization from company to company, but generally speaking, it focuses on 4 main areas. So first being data and market insights. So recruiters have almost like a roadmap before they start hiring of information, including salary benchmarking data, talent mapping. Second pillar, if you like, is technology, which obviously everyone's talking about now, AI automation. The idea of this is what we do is making sure that we can strip away as many of the manual tasks as possible so recruiters can spend more time talking to humans. Third pillar is content and collateral. So recruiters have I suppose, like if you like, the ammunition to pitch a company. So that could be ready to go email templates. It could be role specific pitch decks. It could be culture videos, anything that's going to help you attract candidates to your organization, help them stick through the hiring process. And the fourth being continuous training. Things in hiring, as we know, change all the time. So we need to make sure that people are fully up to date with those skills. And that is recruiting enablement.
Yeah, wonderful description. So Emmy and my paths crossed as I was studying this whole subject from 2023 onwards. And I've met a lot of people that are working in this area. When I first started studying it, there was about 100 people dedicated to this in internal talent acquisition teams. There's now nearly 500. So still,
Wow.
Yeah, it's still not mainstream, but it is definitely growing, and that's because talent acquisition leaders progressively understand the importance of this as a task. So, Haley, give us a quick introduction to you, and let's talk a little bit about the recruitment marketing and employer branding aspects of this. How do we go about, or what are the most important things we need to think about when we're trying to help our recruiters to be recruitment marketers?
Yeah, great question. Also, excuse my voice. It's going in and out, so apologies. But my name is Haley Ennis. I'm our employer brand manager at OneBrief. And yeah, I mean, how do we equip our recruiters when it comes to employer brand? I think one of the biggest challenges in recruitment marketing today is that we're asking recruiters to do a lot. I think historically, recruiters could rely heavily on things like inbound applicants, job boards, their own networks that they've built over time. And today, especially in some of the really competitive markets, recruiters are expected to be a lot of things. They're expected to be talent advisors and relationship builders, brand ambassadors, content creators, marketers. I mean, the list just goes on. So the challenge isn't that recruiters don't understand the value of recruitment marketing. I think that most definitely do. The challenge is that they weren't hired to be copywriters or social media managers or content strategists. And we all know, like, candidates want authenticity. They want to hear from real people. They want insights into your company's culture and teams, and they want to hear that from someone that they actually trust. And I think recruiters are uniquely positioned to provide that perspective. But creating engaging and on-brand content consistently can feel really overwhelming, especially when you're already managing, dozens of open recs and hiring manager communications and so on. So I think another challenge then becomes more about consistency. Employer branding and employee value proposition messaging are often developed by marketing or employer brand specific teams. So translating that into things like recruiter outreach and social content, job promotion, candidate conversations, even at scale, is pretty difficult. And you want recruiters speaking in their own voice while still reinforcing the organization's brand and messaging. So I think ultimately the question just becomes more of like, how do we make it easy for recruiters to be those authentic advocates without creating more work for them? And I think the best solutions really help recruiters show up consistently and confidently by really like giving them that ready to use content and that messaging and the assets that are aligned with your employer brand while still allowing them to personalize it and make it their own. So I think really when you remove the friction, recruiters are much more likely to engage and share and build meaningful connections with talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I honestly don't believe, I've spent time in some sales organizations, and I really do not believe the amount of tasks that recruiters have to do compared to sales teams, which are segmented so well that like one person does one bit and the next bit and then the next bit, whereas recruiters have to be all of those different things that you both just described. So the task is very, very large. We've done nothing but study this and try and provide solutions for the last nearly 3 years. And so the poetry that we launched into the market in early 2025, we've had nearly 18 months of people using that, and we've been enhancing it nonstop. But around 3 months ago, one of the things that we learned is, and in fact, what I will do is I will show you old, if I can, I was going to say I will show you old classic poetry, should I say. And the reason I want to show you classic poetry is just because the evolution is quite useful. So let me share my screen. And this is what we did. So on classic poetry, we wanted to provide solutions for all the different individual tasks that recruiters have to do. And it's segmented according to the stage of the recruiting process. So preparing for the role, talent sourcing, recruitment marketing, operational recruiting, and then knowledge base is the other things that recruiters need. And what we noticed was only 3% of people using this were actually coming in here and clicking on email outreach. We need email outreach, or clicking on job adverts. We need job adverts. They were almost always going into this playbook feature, clicking create, choosing the team, choosing the job title, choosing the location, and then clicking build all playbook assets. And that was building all the different playbook assets that they needed. Okay, but the challenge with that is, so first of all, if we're really providing them with like 20 plus different individual solutions, as soon as they log in, they're looking at that going, that's a lot of different buttons and things. Okay, they didn't want that. They wanted to go to one place, click one button, and that's everything they need there, instead of having to think about, they were never building individual assets, or almost never. They weren't thinking about recruiting in the context of assets. They also weren't thinking about recruiting in the context of playbooks. They were thinking about recruiting in the context of jobs. And so we learned that from monitoring customer behavior and from doing focus groups and customer success meetings and things like that. So we wanted to really make sure that poetry was more streamlined, less buttons, more automation baked into the background. So more simplicity, but at the same time, more sophisticated in terms of the outputs. So now, instead of going into all the individual different things to get what you want, it's all about going into the job area. And in there, for your job in, whether it's the same job in Hong Kong and Singapore and London, you go into the same job area and you access everything from inside that one place. Anytime there's a change to that job, such as the salary goes up or the reporting structure changes, you go in and optimize that once, and all of the assets in there immediately change, whether you're recruiting in Germany or in Canada. So this is new poetry, as we're calling it internally. So when you log in, you are in your jobs area, and I've got all my different jobs in here, and I'm working on this account executive role. On the left-hand side, I can see information about the job on the left-hand side. A bit further down, I can see who is connected to this job. I can add an existing team member if I want to. I could also invite someone new to the workspace. So that could be an HR business partner or a hiring manager or whatever. I just put in their name and their email address, choose what role they've got, and then click invite and add. The only caveat with that is they have to have the same email format as yours in order to become part of the workspace. If your company has got multiple email formats, such as a .com and a .co.uk, for example, then in the settings you can go and decide what is permissible. Okay, so in here I can see my assets. So here's my kickoff meeting and my Boolean strings and all that type of thing. And then here's my research. Okay, so this is sort of talent intelligence, all about the role. As Emmy said, it's a really important thing that recruiters need. If I have images, then my templates are in the admin area, and I can click generate image, and it will dynamically build an image for an account executive role based in Glasgow. Okay, influences is things like if I've got team structure documents for the account executive or for the sales team, or I've got like a culture document for the sales team, or I've got anything that's connected to the account executive job title. These will all appear in here, and I can upload new things as we get them, and that will influence the generation of the content. Okay, and then in the collaboration area, this is where I can add somebody. So I can add a colleague and then type in, this needs to be a higher profile role, right? Which is a typically ambiguous comment. It's not a very good one, of course. It's on the fly that I'm doing this. I click post, And then Peter will get a notification inside Poetry, and if he wants by email, and then he can click the refine all button, which is going to use this comment. It's going to use any back and forth between me and that person to redevelop all of the assets with those additional insights. Okay, so let's build a new role. Stephen's going to show you a few things in terms of ATS integrations and things like that later. But if I had this connected, this is my Poetry workspace just from my company. If I had that connected to my ATS, then there would be a button here saying import from iSIMS or whatever it might be. Okay, so talking about iSIMS, I am just going to use this example job description. So this is an events marketing specialist. I click new job. Okay, there's from the ATS. Well, ironically, I've got Greenhouse connected to this, or from a URL, such as I'm about to do, from notes, such as your transcript, from a document, upload the job description, or start from scratch and you fill in a form. Okay, the fastest way, of course, is connecting it to Workday or SuccessFactors or whichever your ATS is. I'm going to do it with this. So it's reading the post. It's capturing the most important information about the job. And once it's done that, so just take another 10 seconds or so, I will be able to click save, and then it'll start developing what I need. So it's recognized the job title. It's in the marketing area. Here's the information about the job. Okay, so it's in Homedale. We'll select New York as the closest major city, and then create the job. Okay, so it's building 3 assets, and it's building all of the research. Now, it's building all of the research first because that impacts on what the assets say, okay? Because it's looking at supply v demand, it's looking at the potential for the role, it's looking at the challenges in the role, and it's including all that additional context. Okay, so I can now click generate everything, and that'll build all of the rest of the pack in here. So let me take a look at what's been built. So here's the challenges and responsibilities in the role, relevant courses near Newark, the strategic value of the position, the potential for this role to become automated, recommended skills and qualifications, salary range and benefits, similar job titles, where to advertise for this role, the characteristics of employers that hire for this kind of role, the companies with the best career opportunities in Newark, the largest employers for this type of role in Newark. If I want a competitor card, then I can click on, if I don't already have one, then it'll say develop. I click on this. Prudential, for example, here's their strengths and weaknesses and growth trajectory and leadership. Why Poetry rather than Prudential? It gives us talking points for recruiters. So it's great kind of battle cards, that type of thing. Remote work trends, commutable locations, diversity trends, turnover and growth rates, and demand v supply. Okay, so now that I have that great information, I understand the role. Let's take a look at what other assets I've got here. So here's the kickoff meeting. There's 11 questions in here. Poetry's automatically answered 3 of them because they're in the job description, right? I can, down at the bottom, I can share this with the hiring manager. If I click share, then I can share it with the hiring manager or anybody else who wants to share it with. As a questionnaire, I can either fill it in or they can fill it in. They get it as a questionnaire and then they click submit. And then that automatically redevelops all of the assets in here with those additional insights. Here's my talent personas, Boolean strings, conversation guide. So that's like an elevator pitch, social media outreach messaging, my company's EVP recontextualized for that talent persona, job advert, social media post, brand advert, email copy, landing page copy for talent marketers, job description, objection handling, skills-based hiring, candidate interview questions, candidate offer letter, and a kind of interview process, which is quite a detailed thing, including like hiring manager screening, technical case study, values and final. Now, of course, not every company has got a recruiter screen, hiring manager stage, technical case study, and values and final as their interview process. In the settings area, you can upload your interview process and it will absolutely copy that. You can upload your interview process for Germany and for France and for the USA. And depending on the location of the role, it'll recognize New York's in the USA, and it does the USA version of that. It'll recognize that there's a specific criteria for, I don't know, job adverts for sales jobs, sales and marketing jobs versus technology jobs. And it'll recognize which one this is, and it'll develop exactly what you need. So I just want to say one more thing before I hand over to Stephen, just to show a couple of the other things that are in here. We thought that people were going to be buying this because it's typically saving recruiters around 2 hours a day. They're not. Nobody's buying it for that. They're buying it because it's enabling much better consistency in terms of the assets that people are using, which means things like your marketing messaging and your candidate interview experience and things like that. They're all completely consistent. They are following the right templates, they're right first time. The second thing is it's enabling much better collaboration. So instead of hiring teams and HR teams and TA teams working in silos, everyone's got access to everything. And there's a massive amount of additional collaboration. You don't have to be downloading stuff, putting it into folders, giving people access. You do it all within the one place. So, Stephen, there was a few other exciting new additions that we've added into Poetry. I wonder if you could just talk through some of those.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So Adam's just shown kind of like the bread and butter, if you will, right? That's us being able to generate on-brand consistent assets at speed, and it's us introducing this idea of collaboration. And depending on where your organization's at, depends if you're ready for that. But you know, in a world where budgets are getting restricted daily in recruiting teams, hiring managers are naturally going to have to get more involved. And I think each new generation of hiring manager wants to get more and more involved with their recruitment process to make sure that their team is right for them and then the dynamics that they have within it. And that's why collaboration is such a huge thing. But another kind of sticking point, if you will, and another kind of point that we had to address when revamping this product into something that was going to be used in the way that it's intended to be used, is really integrating it fully into those the systems that the recruiters live and breathe every day. Now, web scraping in terms of career site and bringing the content across from that was a really quick and easy way to do that for us. So it doesn't matter, you know, really what your career site is. If it's publicly available, we'll be able to extract the information from that, i.e. if the API is publicly available. And if that's not, i.e. Workday, you will be able to have a set area in settings which will allow you to set the structure of your career site, which will allow you to use the feature that Adam has just shown there. But of course, the most kind of favorable way to do that really is by integrating a system fully into Poetry. So you've seen the import from Greenhouse tab that Adam has shown. I'm in a demo account here that has some jobs in Greenhouse. All of these ones are none of these ones have been imported into Poetry before. So Stephen, I can basically press import. Yeah, I should be. Am I?
Oh, or no? I need to click add to stage, I think.
Ah, right. Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. So just, can you see me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully. Okay. So for the avoidance of doubt for anybody and what I was showing there, I was click the import from Greenhouse button. My live jobs that are inside Greenhouse that are connected to this space came in. I basically selected the ones I wanted to select and I pressed import. Now, I imported several just while I was doing that call, and you can see them building like live, right? So that the numbers are kind of going up and all of that kind of stuff. Now, let's click on this Director of Partnership role. it's taken the content and context directly from the way that it is written inside the ATS, which is directly the way that it is published, on my career site in this instance. And it started to generate some assets. It's generated a whole bunch of research that's related to that role, and it's generated these assets off the bat. You can choose how many you want immediately as well, and that just links from the context of the job and us being able to have a one-click kind of import from your ATS. Now you're probably asking yourself which one of those is available. We have active integrations with Greenhouse, with Pinpoint, with some of the kind of employee family. We're in discussions with some of the other bigger ones as well.
With smart recruiters.
We've also got smart recruiters, and we've got iSIMs and some that are kind of waiting in the wings as we have partnerships ongoing with active customers, that are customers of theirs. So I won't kind of like bore you by going into the details that Adam's already touched upon. I think it's really important for us to just really reinforce that if I want changes here to an asset, I can absolutely just comment on that asset, and make changes individually. I can collaborate with multiple members. So if Emmy, Haley, Adam, and I are all part of the same hiring team for this job, we can all at each other. We can all have a conversation. It shows up in notifications in real time. Essentially, this is, think Slack inside Poetry for your job. That is essentially what this is, with the ability for you to action changes in one click, and for you to have holistic job changes that come at a wider collaboration level. So that's a huge part of the platform for me that I think as we move forward is going to become increasingly important. Now, we've not just stopped there. So we've not just stopped at importing job details and making sure that they're right first time. We've gone one step beyond that, which is the introduction of the reintroduction of Poetry in terms of an extension. And what that extension does is it basically has the ability to read. Not in this case because it's not doing it. Read the job, read any candidates that might be part of that job. So you can see here, I'm reading Gary's profile. Now, I'm not actually importing any of Gary's details into Poetry. I've actually anonymized that data as it passes over, right? We've given a number, but that number is not stored anywhere for a long period of time once we move forward with the process. And basically what we use is we'll use our LLMs to kind of like research the application itself. Whether I need to actually go to the person, and we'll research the application itself and make sure that he is a suitable fit for the role. That's not quite worked for me, but we'll show you some other things as well while we're here. So the other thing I can do, as well as kind of ATS and scanning the kind of CV and the job role, is also scan a profile within something like LinkedIn. You can see here that I'm already on this workspace. Here's jobs that I might be suggested for that are part of that workspace. Here's roles that you might want to get in touch with me about. And we can go right into checking my fit, doing messaging that's related to that. And again, we're not storing any of that detail for a long period of time. We're storing it enough to run kind of like a blind fit check and send kind of personalized contacts and details. So the way that this would work is I would do this. It'll have a look at the job. It'll then do a fit assessment for me against that role. Don't think I'm going to be much of a fit for it based on there we go. There's my strengths and my gaps, and then outreach campaigns. Now, I can do things like personalized outreach, which take into account my tone of voice, all the company branding, all the info, so that I can basically either send a connection request directly, from Poetry in terms of copying this into the connection itself, or this could be an actual LinkedIn message, which I'm copying into Recruiter to try and headhunt or approach somebody for a role. So this kind of experience here, but with candidates, is what we do inside the ATS. And we're selecting which job is available and doing kind of bespoke messaging off the back of that. Now, that's very different, just to come back and join you, that is very different from the ability to do that at scale. And it's purposely not at scale. We have an email campaign tool inside Poetry, which is designed to do campaigns at scale. But when you're doing one-on-one communications, like I'm doing one with Haley right now, and we're discussing a role, the ability for Poetry to take Haley's information, take all of my brand information, marry those together, which gives me a bespoke message for her experience, allows me to approach her directly, makes it feel like it's less of a spray and pray approach, right? Which a lot of kind of tools are designed around, and that it is very personalized for my job and for Haley's, role profile. So 3 things there, right? ATS integrations, the importance of partnerships for us to be able to bring jobs into Poetry in a way that is meaningful to users. Supercharging collaboration so that it is a real center point, so that is done organization wide and it becomes a real kind of thing that recruiters want to get involved in. And actually, like Emmy, you said earlier, right, about like the kind of maturity of recruiters and what they're doing kind of day in, day out. Haley, you mentioned about them having to do lots of different tasks. Imagine a world where you as a recruiter, as somebody that did it for over a decade, I know I only look like I'm 21, but, very young and handsome, everybody always tells me. But the reality is that if I was able to sit and speak to my hiring managers in GE or Saudi Aramco and say, hey, I've sent you a link, you don't even need to log into that link, and it's got all the assets that we're going to do for the recruitment process of this wind turbine engineer or this oil and gas pipeline engineer. And all I need you to do is essentially copy that, write comments on it, tell me what you want to change about the job advert, all of that kind of stuff, and it's done automatically. That's night and day experience for a hiring manager, right? They're used to really kind of like bitty email exchanges and Slack messages, and this becomes a workspace for everybody to be involved in. I'm very passionate about that bit, which is why I go on about it a little bit. But I think it's a workforce change objective that people could get really used to and really fall in love with. And then last but not least is the messaging aspect, is the real kind of bespoke content directly related to people that are living inside your ATS or external platforms. And for you to get away from a world of kind of like AI white noise, of sameness, and for you to use that same tool, but in a bespoke way that actually relates to somebody, felt like a massive step for us. So those are some really key points about what new Poetry brings, which classic Poetry did not, and we felt like that was an important part of the evolution.
So we're doing a lot more fulfillment and not just providing the assets. Emmy, Haley, any comments, any questions?
Haley, do you want to go first or should I go?
I can jump in quickly. I think that everything that you just showed us and described is solving the pain points that I was speaking to earlier. I think it helps with the consistency issue. What it ultimately does, what this new Poetry does, is it allows recruiters to get back to what probably brought them into the field and what they enjoy most, which is building relationships and finding great opportunities for great talent. Poetry alleviates a lot of the things that they might not feel as confident in doing, writing, generating social posts, all of the back and forth with hiring managers. I think it allows them to spend more time doing the things they enjoy, fostering relationships, and making better hires. And that's ultimately what it's all about.
Yeah, and I would agree, and I'm going to follow on from that. So before going into my current role, I was recruiting for donkey's years, and so I started an agency and moved in-house. And when I moved in-house, I was actually surprised by just the sheer volume of admin. And I'm the worst administrator in the world. I barely read my emails at the moment. So because there's just too much coming in. So when I was recruiting and you got 10, 15, 20 requisitions, and I've got to write an email post, write outreach messages for countless candidates, help hiring managers write job descriptions because they weren't writing the job descriptions, write interview questions because I wasn't confident on the quality, for example, of the interview questions. Then I've got to think about, where am I actually finding the candidates from? Which company should I target first? Do I understand how to sell my organization against, the organization that they're actually coming from? All of that was administration. All of that took time. All of it was important, but it wasn't where it was actually giving me, I suppose, where I was delivering the most value. Where I was delivering the most value was actually speaking to candidates, speaking to hiring managers, speaking to the interviewers, speaking to the heads of department, trying to understand where the business was going. So if I had to go back to a recruiting role again, that kind of hands-on recruiting delivery role, for sure, this is the type of tool that I'll be looking for to take away the bits of my role which I don't actually enjoy as much.
Yeah.
You said something really important, Emmy, there, that's something that we've not touched on. Before, in classic poetry, you had a single point of entry, right? You had to categorize a job and build a job. Whereas you've just said there that jobs could come from a variety of different sources. So we have done jobs from the ATS. We've also done scaffold a job out so you can select your team and your job title. But one really big change for us is that you can import your notes from your kickoff meeting. You can take the scribble on the back of a napkin and type it up, and you could use that to create a job. And I think there becomes this thing of like, we've now got like 4 or 5 entry points into a job, which means that will vary for every role that you take on, because one hiring manager is really engaged and has got it all and everything's in the drawer and they know where it is and they can put it forward. And another one says, find me a software engineer and find me it yesterday. And it becomes you then having to struggle with that. So you could then have a call with them, take those notes off, put it into poetry, it structures the job, creates the assets, off you go.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the entry point was another thing that I did say I was going to talk about, but thank you for reminding me that I didn't.
No problems.
Okay. Anything we haven't covered?
Not for me.
All right. So first of all, Emmy and Hayley, my thanks for coming and joining us today. Stephen, thank you very much for the great description and the show and tell. I hope that poetry is useful. If you have any questions, you can contact me or Stephen. In terms of pricing, I'm going to be frank, it's a lot more expensive than it used to be. It's now £150 or $200 per user monthly. However, the value that it's delivering for that is very, very considerable. So if you're a talent acquisition team that's looking for additional operational excellence, if you're a talent acquisition team that is looking to make use of AI, but you're finding that governance is stopping you from using AI for a lot of the things that are being pitched to you or that you'd like to use it for, if you're a talent acquisition team that's looking for better consistency, better collaboration, then we've got something for you and we would love to have a conversation. So again, thank you very much for my friends and colleagues here for coming and joining me. And thank you to all of you for signing up and taking a look at what we're talking about, and look forward to seeing you soon.